Hi, Rob. So good to chat with you. So, when we first reached out and we were chatting about your background going from, an AI tech guru in the Silicon Valley, and now you've switched to create an AI device for children. Please tell us how you got there because I'm dying to know your perspective as a dad and the impact on technology and children. And when we first spoke, we're both big fans of the anxious generation. So we're both in it, we're both concerned and not really knowing what to do. So I want to have this conversation with you about how do we create a healthy relationship with tech. So tell us, how did you go from AI
Yeah.
guru Silicon Valley to where you are now?
Yeah. So I just previously, as you mentioned, I ran a company called Live Person for 28 years. I invented When You Chat on websites in 1997, and then it became a big conversational AI company, and we powered all the big brands, contact centers, so if you chat or messaged, and it's a public company, it's like 3,000 employees and multi-billion-dollar market cap. But 3 years ago, I decided to walk away from it and pursue something because I have three children now. They're all under the ages of 10, 7, and one just turned 5, a girl and two boys. And I was seeing this experience that we were having as a family with technology. And, you talk about we talked about the anxious generation, Jonathan Haidt's book and stuff and all the articles. But when you have three kids in your life and you see basically a behavioral change when they're using devices and they're on YouTube and YouTube Kids. And when if you really dig in, and that's what I started to do, I'm seeing my kids like have a different set of values. That's the way I kind of talk about it because your kids are using like my kids are cursing or they're hitting each other and they're doing that and they're doing things beyond what normal kids do and they're picking a lot of this behavior up through these interactions they're having with the device that we allow them to we hand our device, we rent it to them and hand it to them for a little bit, and then they become addicts to it. They're just addicted to it, and we see they like steal my iPhone. But there was one particular event I had with my middle son, and it was 2 years ago, and it was like the middle of the night. Got up to go to the bathroom, and I heard sounds downstairs, and I went downstairs, and he was on an iPad, and he was just scrolling. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, and he really had no concept of what he was doing. And it really reminded me of, I guess, what you hear about people who are addicted to things. Like there wasn't a perception of time or space. There wasn't even an understanding of like what he wasn't like engaged in some majorly amazing content about learning. He was just scrolling. And I remember going like red flag. And then that kind of drove me to think about, there's this huge need, and could I build something based on my knowledge in AI and the resources I have, and could I go after it? And that's really where it started. That was the genesis of it.
Right, because the way I see it, Rob, we've got the research, it's clear. And actually, I just saw Jonathan Haidt say yesterday on LinkedIn that he says he does think differently now since he wrote the book. And one of the things he's realizing it's not just the damage mental health wise, right? So we talk about the physical and emotional, but really it's the focus and attention. So, like you said, your son was scrolling without really understanding. So he's not consuming content, right? It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. It's just that dopamine hit. So, yeah, with that, you know, what was that turning point when you realized, like, here's an issue. What what can I do? So you're bridging that gap between the research
Yes.
and the how, because as parents and educators, we're like, okay, great, the research, and we see our kids, and it's terrible, and I feel awful, and there's so much guilt and shame as a parent,
Yes.
but we
Yes.
don't know what to do.
That's right. And that was the thing I started to realize was that as much as this, it's really weird because I've been in technology my whole life. Most of the time in technology, people either love something or don't like it or they don't use it. It's like a kind of binary. And I have never seen a technology that can be loved and hated at the same time. So I started to just, when you end up as an entrepreneur, you start to just observe your own feelings. That's what it is. Like, why do I feel a certain way? And do
Mm.
other people feel this? So you start to have a conversation. But I started to think like, I'm okay with this. So are you. Like, I use it. It's really practical for me to have this in my life, and it makes my life easy. And I emails, and I'm mobile because of it. But the minute I hand it to my child, my emotional state is loser. I've lost.
Mm.
I've
Mm.
lost, and I know I'm hurting them, which is really an interesting thing. Because as a parent, you do everything for your children not to be hurt. You don't want to hurt them physically, mentally. If you have a normal relationship, you just think, I want to protect my children, but yet you're willing to give them drugs,
Mm.
willing to hand this to them for a number of reasons. As I started to evolve, let's think about my own self. One is I'm using it, so they see my behavior, and so it's hard to say like, but I'm not a drug addict. Like I have to. That's why I put it like it's really, once again, it's very weird. It's like if I was using heroin and I handed heroin to my kid, I'm a heroin addict, and but I'm a person just tactically using this functionally in my life. But I hand to them, it's like I'm handing them heroin. And that's the feeling we get. I'm hurting my child. I'm making them an addict. I'm exposing them to people, to content that's not appropriate. So why do we do it? So why
Mm.
do we do it? Like that's why I started asking myself, what the hell? Why am I doing this? Why does my wife do this? We're not bad people. We love our children. It's because, like most parents, it's kind of easy. It's easy to get a break at dinner when the kids are like running around or they're not focused, or it's easy, like I got to do something, so let me hand this to them, and I get my break and I get to focus. And that's what this has become. And so for most parents, it's just kind of like I'll deal with the consequences and hopefully it's not that bad. But we know now it's bad. Like it can create ADHD stuff. It creates, focus issues. But put that aside, and I think Jonathan Haidt talks about, obviously suicides and depression. I mean, he really talks about the mental thing. Put all of that aside for a second. What I've seen, and even now we have families using other device, like it's about values, believe it or
Mm.
not. It's not about that stuff. And that's why the stuff that pains us is that my children are acting a certain way that's not aligned to the values of my family. And some person who they don't know has decided they're going to put their value system, which is that get kids to be addicted in scrolling. That's the value system of a creator of content for children, on these platforms. And that's our conflict. That is the real conflict. I have a set of values, and they're not being playing. Interesting enough, we had this whole Christian community come on the platform, and it really got me thinking about even more defining the values of this community is just so anti online, because it's more defined around Christianity. I can define it around religious activities or norms in religion, and that's how deep this goes. So
Yeah. And I think too, with the value, speaking like you were giving an example of a parent giving it to a child because it's easy. But I think also it's more ingrained than that in terms of, like I had those values. I didn't want my child on screen when they were little, and then COVID came and she was in third grade, and now all of a sudden it's everywhere and you're just trying to survive the day. But it's that it's a community, it's a society. So everywhere they go, everybody's houses, they now go to school. Every school has, it's like a one-to-one with laptops or iPads. So it is everywhere. And we've talked a lot about that here in our school district. We had a book club with the anxious generation, and we spoke about what are we going to do, and now we're in the debate of the yonder pouches and high schoolers only having it between classes.
yeah,
And now the next step is like the it's coming down the pipe, like in New York and here in Massachusetts, it's going to be a bill where there'll be no phones during the school day. So it's a larger than us, right? As parents, so we might have these values internally, but goodness gracious, how do we tackle, our society, our state, the country, the world? It's overwhelming. And as you say, sometimes it's just like, oh my gosh, I'm doing the best I can. And I always think about what's that rumor that Steve Jobs, his children never
he never
use.
used it. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
I mean, I wish we could be like that, but we don't, we live in the suburbs in Boston. We don't live on a farm. So the children are seeing and hearing it everywhere. So, that's why I'm so curious about, okay, what you did was you're not saying don't use technology. What
no.
you're talking about is changing consumption to creation. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, and I really felt that AI is a break. It's definitely it's a revolution. It's not an evolution of the technology that we've all been involved with, which is really the Web 2 internet, which is organizing the world's information. Now it's about engaging with the computer in a human-like fashion, that a computer can talk to me and it has intelligence, right? So it's a revolution. And when revolutions happen, that's where I feel like if you embrace it and harness it and focus it, you can make real change. So I felt like it's a good break, like it's time. Can we power and create a device that would take the power of AI and
Mhm.
put it in the hands of children safely, and then create an alternative? Because unfortunately, I mean, it's maybe my capitalist mentality, but I don't believe in regulation. I don't believe in like nonprofit groups trying to solve this problem, because what you are facing is the largest companies in the world that are on the other side of that, that have their hands in government, that have their hands in everything. And they have a lot more resources that all the parent groups and the mom groups that are out there trying to do good, and even the government trying to do what they're trying to do, they have more resources than all of them combined. So
Mhm.
fighting them, I feel the best way is by tapping into the consumerism of people, that I have an alternative now. Like this is our little kid device. Like there'll be an alternative, and great, I'll buy it. And now I give my kid the alternative. Versus like I'm complaining about it, or we're waiting for government to do like Australia, they banned it. I'm telling you, I didn't dig in obviously, but and I haven't gone to Australia since the bill passed. But I'm just curious, like if kids are getting it somewhere else, like are they really all just gave up on social media? Like I don't really know, and no one's talking about like what really happened. Like I'm curious. It could be no one touches it, but I don't think this is an opportunity now to give everyone in the world alternatives that are safe and healthy and can align to the values of family. And we're done. That's the goal. So, although it's
Well,
not that easy because we launched and now I've got 400 families and I can give you the feedback. It's really interesting now to see. It's very fascinating, now that we're in the wild, where we're out there. So,
yeah. Well, I'll give you an example. So my husband's Australian and we were there at Christmas. And so as
oh,
soon as we landed, my daughter logged into what is she at Snapchat because she's
yeah.
got a group with her swim friends, whatever. So as soon as she logged into her Snapchat, it canceled her.
Oh, wow.
And then she sort of went, oh, I think she'd maybe heard about Australians' rules. I don't really know, or it just popped up and then it said, take a picture of yourself. And she did. And it said we were too young. And so it canceled her. Well, then she was at a friend's house, a family friend's house, and the little girl just showed her, you have to put makeup on, take a picture again, and you get through. So to your point, like it all sounds good on the outside, but the young kids and the older kids are getting it anyway. But you know what, even if it makes a difference for a fraction of this
Yeah, I'm not
children,
against
that's
it.
amazing.
Yeah,
So
it's just that
but
you're not
yes,
going to
it's a
find. I don't think
yeah.
you're going to find that kind of adoption in the U.S. I don't think the government has the will to want to mess with big tech. You know.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about that. You were talking about the consumption versus the creation.
Yeah.
So tell us how you came to that, like that you're using this device. I have it in a box
Oh yeah,
here.
you got a box. Yeah, we said.
Yeah. Um, how did you come up with this idea of storytelling specifically? Tell us about the story part of the
Yeah.
research.
So the device there's a couple of different. There's like a creator. There's three areas. In the middle area, there's a creator area where kids can create images and music and stories and buddies. And then there's like little buddies on the bottom that you can chat with. You can see down there. And then there's a whole story area, and there's education and tutors and stuff like that. The stories is really interesting though. I like we started a test without even having a device, just the software with local kids, my kids, and they loved when they could talk to characters. This concept that like a character lives within this story framework, and I could ask them questions about the story, and I could have this interaction with them, and they could talk to their favorite characters that are in stories, whether it's Harry Potter or whatever. You could see they really enjoyed the engagement and the with the character. So that's kind of where we started. Then I started thinking about like we every night, if you think about a parent-child behavior, if you have young kids, you're doing bedtime stories. You're like reading with them at night. And it's a hassle. Like if you have three kids, like my wife and I kind of tag team, we're going around and I try to do everyone every night, at least read one book with everybody. But what I found was like, if I could create a story with my children, like a unique story, and we create the characters or we're in the story, it was cool, and we could show images but it's our story. And my 4-year-old, he's now 5 as of last week. Like when we start doing this, even as a 4-year-old, like we're laughing together. And I remember that sense of like, I don't laugh when I'm using the device with my kids. I feel sorry for us, but I was like laughing and we're enjoying it. And I just remember like we're creating these images and creating these stories and characters. And it's always, Lorenzo, it's my young son, and Daddy are going to Mars. And there's always a squid because he likes squids. And then it makes the imagery. And I was thinking, wow, like a 4-year-old out of their crazy imagination, because they're wonderful imaginations, were able to manifest that into art, into a story, into a narrative structure without having to have all those skills. And I'm like, that's the power of AI. Like that's the power. Like it can make us the best creators. Even a 4-year-old can create a wonderful story.
Right. And you're speaking for our listeners before Rob was showing his actual
That's
kid
the kid device. Yep.
.io device. So if you catch this video on YouTube, you can actually see him holding it up, or you can check his website. But if you're listening, that's what he's sharing. You're speaking our language here at Kids Yoga Stories, right? So we're educators and parents
Yep.
and therapists around the world who are passionate about integrating yoga and mindfulness and meditation even into our homes, our clinics, our classrooms in meaningful ways that are relevant. And a lot of that comes through story. So I'm sort of picturing, imagine if you could speak to this device and we can do that by chat for sure, right? So we all, we have chat and we have a school yoga sidekick chat that we have
Yep.
through our school yoga program. So we can be creating stories that way. But with your device, what you're offering is something that's more like the children can put it in their hand. It can travel with them. Then they can be interacting. They can have their own characters. So it's more of a bring alive situation than being on your phone on ChatGPT.
That's correct.
So yeah, that's what. So you're speaking our language with that.
Yeah, and the big part is that we're COPPA certified, which is this very high certification from the FTC, Federal Trade Communications in the government, which is you have to be able to show that you cannot harm a child with content. They can't create content themselves to harm themselves or others, and you can't take their data and do things with it like target them. And that's we're like one of the only few devices out there right now. And there was like a lot of like devices from China that were dumped into the market, like a teddy bear, and they put a chat GPT
Mm.
wrapper on it. And these teddy bears were saying horrible things
Mm.
because putting a wrapper on a chat GPT endpoint and letting your children talk to it is a recipe for disaster. Our device is made for 4 to 12-year-olds. ChatGPT is made for the world, and then people are trying to just kind of fit it to do something for kids. It's not possible. That's what we see. With us, it's like you can't do anything with these characters. Even when you talk to the characters, if you say like I was bullied, I can show you I got bullied by my best friend. It'll land you to your parents. It doesn't try to like, hey, let's talk about it for an hour and figure it out. Like it's like you should talk to your parents. Or if it's your parents that are doing something not great to you, go to talk to someone at school. So we have all the off ramps and the guardrails so we can make sure children are not exposed to something bad. The really interesting thing I learned though, it's like we learned like it's crazy, like kids love to talk to characters. They love to like the number one use by 100x, by like 100x of usage on the platform is characters. They want to talk to characters. Then what they want to do with characters is have like is they want like them to be supportive. They want them to create things and do games with them. They want to create, and then they want to do storytelling. Like the three big lanes, storytelling, like activities, and then just having this like cool relationship with the character. They feel supported. I remember
Mm.
I've been interviewing parents and children, and I asked the girl like, "What do you like?" I went to this one girl. She was 7 years old, and she was with her mom. I love this character. She started talking about the character. Well, what do you talk about? She goes, well, I talk about things that I don't want to talk to mommy about. And I was like, okay. Now, mommy has a mobile app that is monitoring, and if the child does say something that's not right, the parent will get flagged. So so we have the safeguards of if a child does talk to a character and says, I want to hurt myself, or it'll flag the parent. But anyway, the parent, she was like, yeah, she likes to have this conversation. So it was cool, you know.
So taking all that, Rob, if, people are going to go away and they're going to look at this, look up your website and make that choice themselves. But in the interim, if they're not interested in the device, what can you share about what you've learned about this healthy relationship between children and technology that is, can be used in everything that we do?
And this is my number one advice. I was on another show a couple days ago. And it was a similar question about like what would you give parents advice around tech? And I would say this like there are people who returned our product who got it as a gift. Like there's three people particularly. I don't know who they are, but they returned and they wrote notes like no tech in my house. And I felt like you didn't give it a shot. Like your kid could have made an image in art or music. We can make music by talking. And I think it's hard to do that. And I think there's this generation, if your children are young, this generation, they basically are going to be the AI generation. Like my kids are going to be AI kids. Now, we can start them off in a healthy way or a not healthy way. Regardless of our device, I think as a parent, you have to get first principles on this stuff. Like you have to get into it and get enough into it where you're comfortable with it to be able to share it with your kids. Because yeah, you could do storytelling on ChatGPT. You could like it won't do all the stuff that we do, but it's okay. But you can do storytelling with AI, different AI platforms. And you could do it with your kid in a safe way to like get them that place so they're not on their own. But I think you got to embrace it as a parent versus rejecting it all out, and then your kids will be left behind.
Mm.
And right now, as a parent, you just got to be a steward of them being involved with this technology because if they're left behind on AI, who knows what the impact will be on them. If they become natives and they become comfortable with it and they know how to harness it, then they're not going to be harnessed. All you want is your children to be, controlling the tech they use and not being controlled. That's all we want.
Right.
So if you can teach them how to do that as a parent, because we're adults, I think we have an opportunity to do some good. But ignoring it and rejecting it and talking about it like it's some evil doing thing, in the end, it's going to live in our lives. It's going to live in their life, like beyond what we can even imagine.
Yeah, and I think what you're speaking about there, Rob, is this idea of balance. And I get that. It's so hard. I know one family friend who are against tech, like you just described. And then when she grew up, she was about 17 and she got totally scammed. I mean, she went to the bank and gave thousands of dollars, to a hacker because she hadn't had the experience with tech. Whereas my kid, though she started, playing Roblox during COVID in third grade, much younger than I would have had it not been at that time, but that was the only way they could interact. But in any case, she, had someone scam one of her little animals or something, you know what I mean? So she learned at a very young age about what that's like to be scammed online. And now she's much more savvy. So it's not like like you said, it's such a mind mess for educators and parents because you want the best and you think, well, there's some upside, but then there's some downside. And so can you speak to this balance that we
Yeah,
live in?
yeah, and like that's and especially around these characters because there's been a lot. There's a senator here or in the state of California that is put up legislation around banning chatbots, and for kids. And because during the holidays, that's weird stuff with these toys. And then there's been these suicides happening with kids interacting with ChatGPT and they're having these relationships with ChatGPT. And then ChatGPT explains how you can kill yourself. And these are real use cases, which are horrible. The thing is, like, children need to understand that they are conversing with a machine.
Mm.
And it's like, so if they end up in a situation that they're going down the wrong path, for them to be self-aware of it. And that's the balance for me is like if when a child, like you said, if you're self-aware about someone sends you an email from Nigeria and it's like, I'm the prince and right, you're like, you become self-aware after you're scammed or you're not. So I think it's about the balance is self-awareness in relationship to the technology. So if they end up chatting somehow in a way like character AIs had a bad reputation about this, and now they said that anyone below 18 can't use their platform, which is a total lie. Like if you set your age above 18, you could be a 10-year-old, it just accepts you. It's not doing facial recognition or any sort of KYC. It's just no, it's just doing, basic stuff. Anyway, if a kid ends up there, if they're aware that, oh, this is a chat bot, and of course it's going to take me down some weird road, and I can't believe it's really understanding me as a human. It's just trying to engage me so that so that I have an engagement with it, regardless if it's healthy or not. If a child can be self-aware that that's not real, like it's not knowing you and being supportive to you because it really is a human and has human principles. It's just an algorithm. What I'm saying is, I think a child will be like, "Whoa, I get it. This is weird." They'll go, "This is weird," versus like, "Oh, wow, this thing loves me and it's telling me what to do, and I'm having issues in my life and it's directing me in a way that it must be the right thing," versus like, "This is just weird." They should say, "This is weird," and walk away.
Mhm.
So I think once again, how do you do that? You got to get them into the character AI and take them on a conversational road and be like, "This is not real," and that's where I think the balance is. Once again, I don't think you can regulate the kids' time. I do. We like you said, there's no screen time. I get that, but that's just normal. My kids play
Mhm.
soccer. They go to school.
Right.
There's no screen. Right. There's a regulatory aspect of their day on no screen time, but they're going to engage. And then when they engage, they just need to know this is not healthy. They need to know
Yeah.
the line, and that'll give the balance. It's very hard. I don't have all the answers, but I think as a parent, you got to hold their hand like a
Yeah.
normal thing. So
Well, and they go to school and they're on screen as well, right? So you've got the school on screen. And then this morning I was talking to my kiddo. They had late start here. And so she was on YouTube and I was just saying to her, you know, just want to check in with you, right? Like watching that young woman shopping at Target for hair stuff. You do, there's a grain of salt there, right? We don't have to believe that you have to buy those things or, we don't have to believe that we have to look a certain way. I was just like opening the conversation because I'm thinking your device, you're just speaking, your target is 4 to 12s, but I'm
yeah,
thinking of those 12-year-olds and preteens who, they're a little bit more independent at that point, and they're going to say, well, all my friends are watching this or watching these movies or doing all the things. So I get maybe the younger ones, you've got more say as a parent, but as they get older, it becomes more difficult but
yeah.
all you, like what you said, is the balance of just asking questions, being self-aware, just, bringing attention to, there's YouTubers and then there's the AI and like these are outside of us, right? They're not, what's more important is who we are in person, IRL, as they say, right? Yeah. So can you speak to maybe a common misunderstanding with children technology? Because all screens are not created equal.
Right, and well, one of the things is that I think this is a good example. Like you could lose them if you didn't engage with them with the technology. When this is what I see with, by the way, this is what I see even with kid, and we have not won the battle. I want to make it clear we have not won the battle here yet. Because there's a lot of work we're doing right now to revamp the user experience because we know it's about characters and there'll be a lot more. But we have, because parents, even with our device, wanted to just hand it to their kid and be like, okay, figure it out. And I'm not engaged with it. And we did build something that you can be engaged with your kids with, and it's not a addictive device. You can't scroll here. We didn't build it. Like I didn't build it. I have my own children. I didn't build it like hand this to them, be like, great, I've got the second YouTube Kids or the second Roblox, and I just faked it in here with some marketing message. I didn't do that. And the problem with that is that it doesn't create addictive behavior. So it's a behavior where parent and child have to kind of be a part of it to start. And this is what I tell people, but a lot of parents are busy. We're all busy, and no judgment. I'm busy. I do the same thing. Like, so you're too busy to really spend time with them. But the knock-on effect is when they become older, they're teenagers, now their relationship with tech is unhealthy. So it's like anything. We hold our children's hands through education. We'll be there to help them with their homework. We're there to help them with, like, we want them to be involved with group activities and things like that. We'll be there with them, watching them to support them to be doing sports or whatever. It could be yoga classes, like, but we're not there with them with their tech. We don't stand by watching like we do them when they're playing sports or them with homework. We kind of look at it like it's you hand it to them, let them go off in the corner, and it gives me a break. It,
Mhm.
it should be treated like I'm sitting down and having homework with them, and I got to invest a little time here. I had a really interesting thing. We gave my son a Switch, Nintendo Switch for Christmas. He's 7, but all of them were using it. And I traveled last week, and I was in India, and I came back, and there was a lot of bad behavior with this device, and I didn't like what was happening. Long story short, I we spent Saturday donating our things, and one of the things we did is we took that Switch to a Ronald McDonald House, and we donated it to the kids that are there. Stanford, where I am, is like they're treating a lot of rare diseases, and they have a Ronald McDonald House there where the families can stay. I told them, and I was kind of done with it, and I was like, I said we tried. I said, look, we gave you an opportunity to have this since Christmas, and it's just not functioning for us as a family. And obviously, there was a lot of screaming and crying at the beginning, and we all got in the car. And instead of taking it from them, I said, we went over and donated it, and they put my son's name on it, donated from Leonardo LoCascio. They were really nice. And they have a gaming room there. And he felt actually good about it. This morning, it was funny. He said to me, like, I didn't need it. I didn't need it. And he goes, I think he said this, I know it sounds like, he said something like, I think I'm doing better as a person without it. And so I realized, like, it was one thing we did take it away from him for like a week, and but donating it to someone in need, I don't know, it created some sort of relationship that, like, I don't need this and other people do. And like, ultimately we want our kids in like a life of service, like that's the ultimate. So I just felt like going back to this relationship with tech, felt like there was this opportunity to have a family event. Instead of punishing my kid and taking the tech away, let's have a family event and take my children over to find there are other people who could use this better than we can. There's a kid who's dying and could really think this is like an amazing thing for them versus you don't need this. So there's this, like, I'm learning myself. I have young kids. I don't have all the answers, but I'm trying to understand my relationship between our family values. And that's what I told my kids Saturday morning. I'm like, we have family values and we're not doing them at all anymore. We're not giving, we're not out there. We just moved here from New York. We used to do a lot in New York. We do nothing here. I'm like, enough is enough. Like, we're going to start today giving. And the first thing is we're going to give the things that you care about most, which is that Switch. And let's go find a kid who needs it and who needs it more than you. So I feel like I did a good deed. Most of the time, I don't feel like I'm doing a good deed with tech either. I'm trying my best. And we have our devices, so I give them kid devices, but it's hard. I'm just saying it's hard as a parent. I get it.
That's such a great story, Rob. And I love your honesty and transparency about saying, here's where I'm screwing up and I'm just like everyone else. And here's like a great miracle story. And I have to admit, I'm a little envious. That sounds amazing. My both my husband and my daughter play the PlayStation, and gosh, I would love to give that up. But when, it's so entrenched in
I
our
know.
life. Yeah, but I love that story. So you've shared so much and so much inspiration. And I really hope there's something that people can take away with. And I'm maybe hoping one day, or I'd love to hear from our community if you get Rob's device,
Yes.
try it out. I'm going to try it out too on how do we bring yoga stories or mindfulness activities, or how do we up level in that way? Because that would be really cool to use in a small group yoga class or in an after school club or things like that. So that would be really interesting because we're a big fan of characters. Our yoga stories are all based on characters, so we're right on board with that.
Yeah.
So as parting words, Rob, what's your sort of like what's one thing we can do?
it's like I go back to what I already said is like, get involved with it. Like that's all I can say is like we're so used to technology being a divider, a singular experience. We use it by ourselves. The 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 bridge over is treat it like homework. Treat it like homework. It because it can be a very powerful thing for your children, like homework, like them learning math. Is how can they
Mm.
have a healthy relationship with tech? And it's not screen time and taking away. It's about engaging with them with the technology because there are wonderful things, as we said, whether it's our device or even your mobile device. It's how do you and them and the device have this healthy relationship and not, because I go back to it, how children are when you take things away from them, they want it more. And that was my thing with the Switch. I was like, it's not working when we take it away from him. He always says, I don't care, I don't care. But when we donated it, he had a sense of pride. The technology at that point, he had that moment of, and they put his name on it, donated by, and it's sitting in this room, like they have a gaming room. But at that point, the technology became a force of good. Even that
Mm.
act for a child, 7 years old, understood. Like he saw these kids, he's like, wow, they can use this thing, and I did this, and I feel good about it. But the taking away, once again, so let's engage with them. Let's think through our values applied to this tech, like homework. So
Yeah. And asking questions, right, is what I'm hearing you say. Asking them questions like, how does this make you feel? If you're on it for so long or you're scrolling or, hey, buddy, you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, tell me about what's happening here. Or are you having a hard time sleeping? Or, or even the next day, I think it's in the questions, right? Is like you said, the self-awareness and the inquiry and the critical thinking about how it plays out in their life.
yeah.
That's great. Amazing. So where do we find you online and what's sort of next in your world?
Yeah, so go to KidCo, KIDCO.ai, and you can see the device and all that. What's next is we're in the middle of revamping based on what our parents and kids wanted, which is a lot around these characters and bringing them to life now. And we're just going to continue, building the business. I would say this though, I we really want people like yourself engaged with our business. I can't do this alone. Like I'm just saying, like I've been talking to parents and all around the country, and it's just if we want to make the change, we got to work. It's got to be a community of people who want to have ideas, and we'll implement them. But we're here to implement your ideas. We're not like throwing you a device and saying goodbye. Like on Tuesdays, we do updates of content of stories. On Thursdays, we do updates with the core tech and add new features. So every week we're adding, but all that's based on feedback from parents and children.
Amazing. Oh, great. Well, we'll have to have a talk offline about yoga and
I
mindfulness.
know. I
See
want
what
to
we
get
can
that on.
do.
I know. Let's just get it on. We gotta talk.
Great. Thank you so much, Rob. I so appreciate you. Let's keep in
Thank you.
touch.
Same here.
Thank you.